All right, so I'm here with Big Phil Harrison. And so some of you have heard me talking in the group about Phil's challenge next week, and I just thought it'd be really cool to bring him in here and have him in to have a chat. So welcome, Phil. Thanks for coming along and joining us. I know it's a busy week in the run up to a challenge.
Nice to be here.
And tell us a little bit about you. Where are you based to start with?
Okay, so I'm based in the north of England, Newcastle, which is proper north. You know, when people think they're in like north and they say they're in Manchester and Liverpool, they're in the north. No, I'm like 3 hours further north. Like, if you know Game of Thrones, I'm like Winterfell. Put it that way. That's where I'm at. Well, I'm originally from London. I've been in Newcastle now about 17 years. I've adopted a lot of the words which I can't pronounce properly. So when I speak to people up here, I use a lot of the lingo. They just sound silly coming out of my voice because I've got the London dialect. Yeah, but I've lived in Plymouth for a couple of years, Coventry for a few years. I was a bit of a nomad for a bit in my early teens when I kept getting kicked out of university for not concentrating. And I had to move around different universities to actually get my degree, which I did in the end. So, but yes,
good stuff. Okay, so when did you actually get started with your business then? So it's interesting that you say you got kicked out of university, because I often find those people who have a little bit of a rebellious streak are often the entrepreneurs.
Yes. Well, incidentally, I was actually employed as a sales and market manager for a health club chain, and I could never get the promotions that I wanted because I was always deemed as being too maverick. Basically, that was the reason that I never got the promotions. And so at the time, I ended up deciding that I wanted to go and work for myself, partnered up with a PT, opened up a massive boot camp, opened up a gym. We were doing really well, really successful. And then I lost it all one day, basically, because, you know, he did something that wasn't very nice. And, you know, I drove in the morning in a 70 grand Porsche, and then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm on a street corner with everything in a black bag, ringing my girlfriend saying, "Can you come and pick me up?"
Oh, no.
That led me into a place of like, right, I'm never going into business with anyone again. And I was about to get hammered on a bottle of Jack Daniels that night, and I was sitting there with it and just wanted to just knock it back, obviously, the way I was feeling. And something stopped me, and I realized at that moment that I had been the driving force behind all the businesses I'd ever been involved with. And I was like, I'm just going to do it by myself. So I jumped in at that stage trying to learn internet marketing, online marketing, and I absorbed every free lead magnet, every podcast, followed every guru out there. I borrowed 20 grand off my partner's dad because I needed some money to get going again and to pay some bills. And I probably wasted 15 grand of that on stuff that didn't really help, basically. Didn't help in the sense as though I didn't get anything tangible out of it, but I learned a lot of lessons about what not to do. And I was sitting there one day and I was like, why? I'm doing everything everybody says. Why can I not get people to come and join my programs? And this was in the fitness niche at the time, online fitness. I've got great results. Everybody should want to join what I'm doing. And I realized, you know what? It's because nobody trusts me. And we all know, like, and trust. But I'm like, it's because I need to prove to these people what I can do for them. If I can prove to them what I can do, I know that they will become clients of mine long term. So that my brain shifted to bringing people into my world, serving them basically before I sold to them. And that was the foundation sort of step of everything that came with all the systems that I created, because I did bring these people into my world and I focused on serving them and giving a really strong positive impact on their life. And then I became their leader. I became their expert at that point in time. I became the guy who solved their problems and allowed them to move forward. And they then were like, you know what? We believe in you now, Phil. We want to join your programs because you've built that trust. And so that very, very short snippet of my life story there sort of brought me up to, you know, how I've been doing this for the last sort of 7 or 8 years.
So it's like a light bulb moment, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, this stuff works.
Yeah.
So when did you transition from fitness into properly like online marketing? And
So I did really, really well online fitness all of a sudden, and I had loads of PTs reaching out to me saying, how have you gone from nothing to making like, you know, 100 grand a year in online fitness? And so I started teaching them, and in that process I realized I had a skill for taking very complicated things and making it very simple for people to understand and implement in their own business. And so I did it a lot with quite a few online PTs. They had great success. And then word spread about what I was doing. And one day I connected with a lady called Helen Pritchard in a Facebook group. And she was giving away a free this. And I was like, oh, I'll have some of that. We got on a call. And I realized that she had this like great product to get leads from LinkedIn. And I'm like, you need a 5-day challenge to launch this. This is absolutely amazing. So she was like, right, okay. And she's a real action taker. So she'd done everything in a few days and did like a 30 grand launch for it. And it's just like, oh my God, I want more of this. How do I do more of this? So we spent time building our audiences and repeating it. And she went from doing 200,000 in her first year to $1 million in 12 months using a 5-day challenge system that we created. Now, naturally, when you have that sort of result for people, you get a lot of attention from other people. Like, you know, how have you possibly done that? Oh, well, you know, there's this guy, Phil. So probably over about 3 or 4 years, I was just in the background of people's businesses, building these things for people. And I was termed at the time the best kept secret in internet marketing. That was the name that some people had given me. And I was like, well, that's great, but I don't want to be the best kept secret. You know, I would like people to actually know who I am so I can grow my own audience and stuff. So I started systemizing everything that I'd done for one-to-one for people and creating essentially a process for people to follow so they could employ it in their own businesses. And it just went crazy after that. You know, I ran my own free 5-day challenge for this entrepreneurial space and I had 1,000 people in it. And I expected to sell like 50 maybe places in my program, and I sold 230 basically. And the worst thing was I gave away a free one-to-one call with me if you paid in full, because I thought, that'd be a big incentive, expecting like 10 people to say yes, and 95 people bought in full. It was literally right at the beginning of lockdown. Okay. For anyone knows me, I'm into my cars, and I've got a nice car, and I had to go to, because of this, I was locked in the house all the time. I drove to Starbucks and I would start my calls in the morning sitting in the car park, and I'd be there all day for like 8 hours sitting in this car, and I'd just keep driving around the drive-through to get new coffees and get my lunch like this all day long for about 4 days, trying to get through all these calls. I did in the end, and it was hard work, but amazing connecting with so many cool people at the time. So yeah, I don't do that anymore. I don't give that away anymore. But yeah, that's how I ended up here. And, you know, loads of people then went and had massive success following my course. And, you know, words just really, you know, it's just like a snowball. You know, when you do good things online, and I think you do it in a way where you have integrity, that, you know, you can probably tell how excited I am about this stuff. You know, I love it, and I really care for wanting to see people win. You know, I grew up in a very, very poor background, and I struggled most of my life at school with dyslexia and things like that. And I was like, you know what, like, I don't like to see people struggle, and I want to give people a chance to win. And I want to be the guy that I needed in my business 8 years ago. And so I've tried to be that person. And, you know, I think I've just about managed it. Definitely not perfect. But, you know, everybody knows me as the guy who wants to see them win.
And sorry, I think I just disappeared. But it's interesting because I was on a call with my mastermind group yesterday, and, you know, every single person that I spoke to, when we got to their section, we were talking about marketing, because it's all about, we can create these amazing products, these amazing things, but if we can't put them in front of an audience, then nobody's ever going to buy us, and then we become the best kept secret. So I mean, you're kind of preaching to the converted about the power of challenges, because it's absolutely revolutionized my business. And loads of people here know that I just really disliked other kind of launch structures. So webinars I tried extensively about 6 years ago, and I just couldn't get to grips with it. And my conversion rate was just absolutely abysmal. And when I first started moving to challenges, you know, I didn't get it all right because I was really tinkering with it, and I didn't have a structure and a framework like you've got for your clients. But I just knew straight away that I'd stumbled on something that was definitely just more in line with how I wanted to work with people. Like you say, serving before you actually offer them an opportunity to whip out a credit card. So we were having a chat before we came on live, and you were talking to me because I was asking about Facebook ads. So I think a lot of people have, well, when they're first starting out, they feel like they don't have the budget for Facebook ads. And now even some of us who are kind of seasoned Facebook ads user are becoming disheartened with them or disillusioned with them because it's getting harder.
Yeah.
And so what really caught my attention when you were talking about the challenge that you're running next week is that you were saying that you're going to be doing it without Facebook ads. And so could you just talk us through how that works, what you were talking about, emerging and growing? It would be great. I think people would really like to hear that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's two ways of looking at this, answering this question. The first thing is to explain sort of the mechanisms that you can use at different stages of your online business that will work for you to get free traffic to your challenges, which I'll come to in just a sec. But the thing I want to say first is that people often think that they don't have an audience because maybe they don't get a lot of connection online or things like that, don't get a lot of traction with their stuff. The truth is, most of us have some sort of audience at the beginning, because if we are aligning ourselves with other people in our world that have similar interests, you do have a bit of an audience. And I see sometimes a lot of people, when they create their challenges without the right instructions, they create challenges that aren't actually relevant to what their audience need at that moment in time. So I tell people the way to come up with your challenges basically is to pick the 4 big problems that your audience is having right now, the 4 big problems. So think back, if you were your ideal client way back when, what were the 4 big things you needed help with at that point in time? And you create a challenge around those. And that means that you're meeting your audience where they're at. And then it's just it's a case of communicating it effectively with them, which you can do if you take the time to understand your audience. Now, I'm sure, Vicky, if you're anything like me, you'll know the importance of understanding your people that you're trying to sell to. So I'm not going to go down a big tangent on that one. So that's really important to know at the beginning. The second step is understanding where you're at in your business and the options that are open to you. So we're talking about organic growth here. And I think a lot of people also get confused about organic engagement versus organic growth. Organic engagement is when you're putting out content to the world. You are engaging with your existing audience 9 times out of 10. People that are already following you on your email lists, maybe if you've got them, your social followers and so on. When you're putting out content and doing stuff like that, you're engaging rather than audience building. So you actually have to think, right, I need to grow my network. I need to go into places where there are other people that do not existingly follow me, and I need to get them into my world. How can I do that? So if we split sort of online info service providers, coaches, people that sell courses, these sorts of things, they're typically at 3 stages. You've got emerging, growing, and scaling, basically. Now, when you're emerging, most people very rarely have a budget for ads at that stage, unless you're sitting on some hedge fund from years ago or something. And you have to start out at the beginning. And it takes a bit of time, but as long as you persist with actually going and building networks of people around you, you will get there. But I think you have to manage your expectations at this stage. It does take a bit of time in the early days to get going with all this stuff. And one of the best ways of doing this is by using Facebook groups. And not in a sleazy way where you go into these groups and start friend requesting everybody and then inbox and come in your challenges and all this sort of stuff. I don't necessarily, I know people do it and it does work for some people, but I know how I feel if I get a message like that from somebody. So my strategy is go into a Facebook, pick 20 Facebook groups, okay, where you think your audience is going to hang out in, or you've got some sort of cross audience with other people. Pick 20. And then go into them and have a look at them and look for the most engaged. Look at the ones where people are actually having conversations inside. It's not just a spam session or there's nothing going on. The biggest groups aren't always the best, basically. So look for the ones that engage. And then pick 3 and think, I'm going to spend the next 3 months building up a presence in that group where I'm having conversations with people. They put a post on about the rainbow polar bear they've just bought for their daughter. Go and get involved in it. Go and get involved in that conversation and start building connections with people, because the more you're visible interacting in a group, the more chance that when you start to post your own stuff in there, where you might start to post some really good value stuff for that group, you're more likely to get your stuff seen by other people in the group because of the way the Facebook algorithm works. So you need to build up the credit in the group before you start actually trying to put your stuff out to there. Now, when you start having conversations with people and you put your own posts in as well, a few months later, you will get friend requests from people that you're interacting with in the group, and you can friend request those people in a, it's not like you respond to their comment and they say, oh, thanks, Phil, and then you friend request them. You need to do a little bit more than that to get to that stage. But that builds up your network of people where they come into your world and then they'll start to see what you're doing. Okay, so this is like a really good entry-level strategy to do. Now, most people, the idea of this, they're like, oh God, really, I've got to do this in Facebook groups. But this happened to me. Like, that's what I did. And I built a multi-million-pound business as a result of that early days. When I first tried to become noticed, I was in there speaking to people, and it took one connection with somebody in a chat thread for me to then get on a call with them a few weeks later and have some interaction with them. And then we connected and realized there was so much we could do together. Yeah. And that's where other people's audiences come into your world. Okay. So that's the emerging. And then if you go to the growing group, essentially to still be doing the Facebook group stuff as well. But now you're sort of getting some authority. You're getting a bit more recognized for how you can help people and what you do. And that's where you can start doing what we call guest experting and introducing series. So guest experting is very similar to this. Like, we're having a conversation right now, Vicky, but like you could have said, like, Phil, come in and do like a training in the group, and I could have sat here with all these cool slides and done all of that. But that's it. That would be what we class as a guest expert. And then I could turn around and be like, Vicky, you know what? Come into my world and let's do something as well. And what happens is your audience start crossing over at that point. Okay, so you go from the basic stuff that you do in the Facebook groups into the growing phase, where now you've got a little bit of expert positioning, maybe a bit more. You can start to do more visibility stuff and cross-purpose audiences. Now, that's probably the mainstay of where most people are for quite some time. And you'll get invited into podcasts as well. You can reach out to get on podcasts. The whole guest expert and introducing thing goes many, many ways in different platforms. But then if you're in a scaling position at the end where you're like, right, you're in a place where you've got all of that, but you want to go up to new levels, and particularly you don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on Facebook ads, then using partnerships is a really good way of doing that. And all the credit you've built with everybody, where you've gone through those early stages, you can reach out to them and be like, look, I've got this thing coming up. I'd love to promote this to your audience. Would you be comfortable doing it? And you can offer different incentives and rewards for working with people in different ways to make that happen. And, I was really surprised last year when I was involved in a really big launch with somebody for the first time. And I was like, how much did you spend on ads to get the number of, people sign up at the end? And they told me, and I was like, well, that's really low. You must have got a really good lead cost for the number of convert people you got in the end. And they're like, no, 70% of the traffic in the launch came from doing cross-purpose audience stuff. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that was a little real light bulb. I'd always heard about it, but I didn't realize it was that impactful. So I hope that sort of gives you a bit of a snapshot. This is very super quick, obviously. Yeah. I do talk a lot more about this in the challenge that I've got going on next week and that. But I hope that gives you a snapshot, everybody, of the way to see things.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So actually, I'm having a look over in the chat. And by the way, let me just put up, if anyone's wanting to hop into Phil's challenge next week, let me just pop that. There's a link for you guys to go to. It's the websitementor.com/bigphil. That'll take you there. I've never asked you where the Big Phil comes from. I might hold back on that.
It's not as bad as you think.
Let's just have a look. So I can see Rosemary's here. Hi, Tracy, Annette. Great to see you all. Rosemary says, you've got such a magnetic presence and so down to earth. I love you already. I know she's talking about me, actually.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Annette says, I'm popping in here in between dental treatment. Oh my God, Annette, you made it. She's posted yesterday and said, I won't make it. I'm at the dentist. So apologies if you already covered this. Is it mission critical to be active on Facebook itself, or can I engage purely in groups rather than on Facebook in general? I'll hand that over to you, Phil.
Good question. It's not mission critical, but understand that Facebook is really geared towards human and people interaction, and you will typically get more interaction on your personal feed than anywhere else. That being said, Facebook has shifted in the last year and a half, 2 years, about prioritizing group stuff over a lot of other things. So, you could definitely just have a presence in groups and it would work that way. But the downside to that is you are relying purely on what you are able to do inside a group to bring people into your world if you don't have a lot going on Facebook for people then to get to know you better. Say, for example, your personal feed is very non-existent and there's not much going on in there. If you're in groups and connecting with people and they friend request you, like normally what would happen is your newsfeed becomes your portfolio, your place to, it's almost like a bit like a website. It's like a social website, isn't it? You've got your business pages, but your newsfeed, your personal feed can also be that as well, in a way that is not so business spammy. It's really important to get the balance right, personal and business stuff on Facebook news feeds. But yeah, you do. I would say that you have a way better chance of making your new connections work better for you if you have some degree of presence on Facebook itself and not just in the groups.
It's a really good advice, because actually lots and lots of people ask me about that, about putting stuff on their personal profile, because they feel like, well, that they're spamming their friends and they don't want to. And also some people actually are just really frightened of that visibility, of feeling judged by their friends or their family.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that. I'm not hugely active on my personal profile actually, but especially not with work stuff. Occasionally I'll drop.
It's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that, because I was just like everybody else at the beginning when I was like, it felt really like not sure about it. And someone once turned around to me and said, you need to stop worrying about friends and family looking at you on Facebook and judging you for what you put on, because they are the worst people to ever ask for advice, because you will never get a true reflection of what you're actually asking for, because they will have preconceived opinions about you anyway, and it does not matter. And it's true. Like if you ever ask some friends or family about advice about something you've just done, you don't get a proper objective opinion on it. You get their preconceived idea. And it made me realize, I was thinking, why the hell am I worried about what everyone else is thinking? It's the other people that I want to influence. I'm not worried about if my mum or my brother, gets annoyed because I'm putting this on Facebook. They don't pay me. Yeah. They don't allow my business to grow, but these other people do, and I want to serve them.
But and also you actually don't know who's looking. So I've had amazing connections on Facebook through people looking at my personal profile who've then gone on to become clients, who have then referred multiple clients to me. And so you never know who's looking.
Exactly.
So Tracy says, I am a maker, not a coach. Will Phil's challenge be beneficial to me? So Tracy makes jewelry. It's amazing jewelry. So is it beneficial for people who are doing crafts and products and merchandise, or is it just service-based people that you think it would be?
Okay, so yes, it can work for you guys as well. I'll be straight up and transparent. It works way more easily and effectively for like your online coaches and people that are selling courses. But let me give an example of how this actually works for some people that have got bricks and mortar businesses. So we've had, say, salons do them, where the salons do a 5-day challenge and teach people how, like, skincare routines, hair care routines and things like that, how to do different hairstyles and all the rest of it. And then at the end, sell physical products to them. I've had a tarot card reader who taught how to understand tarot cards over the 5 days and then sold tarot card readings at the end. We have beauticians do the same thing as well. Makeup artists do the same thing. My instinct would be, if you were going to do something, it would be about how to create certain looks with jewelry and things like that, and then you could offer to sell the jewelry pieces at the end. Basically, there's ways and means of doing it, and I think the key thing is to recognize that, in marketing, a lot of the time, if you can do something different to make you stand out to what your competitors are doing, it's really interesting how well this can work. And let's say you don't physically use the free 5-day challenge to sell a product per se at the end. If you could say to people, I'm going to invite all these people into this private group for 5 days. I'm going to show you how to really dress with cool jewelry and bring in maybe a stylist and people like that who can add some extra value through the week. What you do is you build up a really cool, raving fan base of followers in the process. So this happens naturally with a 5-day challenge, but you are bringing these people in who will remember you and will be way more likely to buy from you as a result of what you've served them with during those 5 days. So see the 5-day challenge, maybe not as a 5-day challenge, okay? See it as a 5-day place where you get to have an impact on a group of people that you can help with your stuff. And, you know, I think challenge can sometimes mislead people, but you can call it what you want, basically. We call it a challenge because it's probably more well recognized as a challenge system. But if you are delivering a positive impact on people's lives over 5 days, you allow people to build trust in you, and trust is what leads to sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just going back to your original idea about showing them how to make stuff, people love behind the scenes stuff. So, you know, Tracy, I think that Linda was on the same course that you came on for Rock That Website. And, you know, so Linda does like stained glass. And, you know, people are curious about how that stuff happens, just in the same way as they might be about jewelry making and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I definitely think there's scope for someone who's
I did have a client who did something like this, and they ended up with their business, instead of selling jewelry, ended up selling, shifting to selling the supplies for people to start making their own jewelry. So their 5-day challenge became, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And then they became the supplier at the end for all of the materials that people start using for their own jewelries. So maybe there's a long-term solution there for you.
Yeah, or workshops and that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we wrap up, because I won't keep you too much longer, I know that you're crazy busy, and also Phil let me in on a little bit of a well, it's not a secret, but you've got a little bit of a dodgy voice at the moment, haven't you? That you should be resting rather than chatting nonstop to us in our group. But can you just tell us a little bit about what to expect from the challenge next week? And because the likes of Tracy, obviously she was asking a question about that, but what kind of topics are you going to be covering with us?
Yeah, so the idea of the 5-day challenge next week is you essentially will come in, and my team and I will help you figure out your own 5-day challenge. That's the ultimate goal. So you'll walk away at the end of the week with like a blueprint of essentially what your own challenge is going to be on. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Just somebody needed to get in. Sorry.
Good to see all you guys here, by the way. Thank you for coming along. Here we go.
There we go. Sorry, back in. So yeah, the purpose is to really, everybody who's got, you know, does a challenge work for me? Will it work for me? What the hell will my challenge be on? How am I going to do this? What do I teach inside of it? The idea is that through the 5 days with me, we'll help you figure all that out, basically. So we spend a lot of time, me and my coaches, actually essentially giving you one-to-one feedback. So each day you'll have a task to complete, which will help you make a bit of progress every single day. And these are things that we call micro wins. And then it'll lead up to one big aha moment at the end of the week. You'll be like, right, this all makes total sense to me now. But my team and I will help you figure all this out along the way. So you get direct feedback from me and my coaches all the way through the week. And you'll walk away knowing what your 5-day challenge is going to be on and what you're going to teach inside of it. And that's fundamentally what we do. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that you'll be talking to people about, you know, how to make sure that their challenge is really well aligned with whatever their offering is.
Oh,
And one of the mistakes that I made when I first started running challenges, even though I wasn't calling it a challenge at the time, was that I gave people way too much information. I mean, I literally just stuffed them full of information. So I'm sure that you'll be talking about how to avoid the pitfalls of doing that, because I think we all have a tendency to just tell everybody everything because we want to give as much as we possibly can in those 5 days whilst we've got everyone's attention. So yeah, I'm sure that you'll probably be talking us through that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the way the structure works, you'll have your task in the morning. In the afternoon, you'll have an Ask Me Anything post where you can post questions. And on the night time, on the live streams, I will cover the key topics that come up on there, and I'll be discussing other areas. And, you know, it literally is just me talking for like sometimes 2 to 3 hours. I always have a glass of whiskey in my hand as well, so I don't really deteriorate through the evening in terms of my speech and things like that. But I'm very well known for my chill with Phils in the evening challenges. But yes, you will get all the insights. I don't hold anything back in my challenges in terms of, you know, I can't give you everything that you need to run a challenge in the same way that we run challenges. That would just, it would completely explode your brain. If I tried to do that in 5 days, it would explode my brain at the same time. So we give you the key fundamentals that you need over the 5 days to be crystal clear on what needs to happen next. But I will give you all of the insights that are the crucial insights that you have to be fully aware of. The mistakes I made, the breakthroughs and the light bulb moments that we had that made a huge difference to how our challenges perform. So that will all come out in the wash over the 5 days.
Fabulous. Awesome. Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. So I know that there's lots of people in the chat who are just saying they've signed up. They can't wait. Rosemary says, ha ha, chill, Phil. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for being here with us, Phil. We're going to let you go and grab a tot of whiskey or whatever it is that's going to sort out your throat. But we'll look forward to seeing you in the group next week. I'm going to run through it with you all as well, because I know I'll pick up loads and loads of tips. And so really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. Thanks, guys, for coming along. Bye for now.